Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Tom Nagoski, for the kind words of introduction. Thank you so much.
Please take the seat, Prime Minister. You sit there. Please sit. Good. Well, Prime Minister, once again, welcome to the Asia Society.
Thank you so much.
It's good to have you in New York and great to have you here in Asia's home in America. You said something very interesting in your remarks before. You said that Nepal is the oldest independent state in Asia. This, I think, is worth a few words to our American audience. You might explain a little bit of the history. I know in the days of the British Raj, you in Nepal gave the British a very hard time and stopped them at your borders. So why don't you explain to our audience just a little bit of the history before we get into the current period?
It's a matter of pride for us that Nepal remained always an independent country. When the imperialistic era was in such a situation where no sun was setting of a colonial country. But there was, of course, in Asia, oil spot, where the rays or shadow of colonialism were never casted. There was always freedom, always independence.
So how did you stop the British? None of the rest of us did.
Yeah. Of course, we had to sacrifice for that. We had to fight. Our ancestors fought with a knife. They are just knives and against the cannons and guns. But they resisted, and the country remained always sovereign. And we lost the war, of course, and we had to lose some territory of the country. And were compelled to resist in agreement, but the sovereignty of the country was again continued. It was preserved.
What's a remarkable achievement across, let's call it, colonial Asia, where for 400 to 500 years, really, you had one country or civilization after another falling to the British or the French or the Dutch or the Spanish or the Portuguese. So, well done. Which brings us to the present period of politics and the remarkable period of the last quarter of a century. You had some return to democracy in 1990, and then a very tortuous path through to the promulgation of the new constitution of 2015. And then you have the elections of last year, where you were elected with a 64% majority on behalf of the Nepal Communist Party. I was told before that when you were nominated for the parliament, you had something in excess of 78% of the parliament in support of you, and for the government's program, when you put it to the parliament, with 100% parliamentary support. Now, why wasn't I able to achieve that in Australia? Tell me how you got to there with this extraordinary development of the Constitution over that period of time, and what stability do you think it gives the country for the future?
We have not that very long history of democratic movement, but we have history of different types of movements. As we talk about the movement for sovereignty, movement for independence, etc., and movement for social awareness and against autocratic regimes. But finally, in 1951, Nepal was entered into a new era. After the downfall of Rana oligarchy, the family rule of the Ranas. And after that, there was again tug of war for the power between the political parties, democratic forces, and the monarchy. The monarchy was still over there, and in 60, again, the monarchy took over unconstitutionally and forcibly. The democracy was again, the absence of democracy was not accepted by the people. But for 30 years again we had to fight. And we were watching the ups and downs of the global movements and achievements of the democratic movements and failures of different types of ups and downs. And with this experience, we launched a struggle for democracy, for the cause of democracy. As I mentioned that I spent myself 14 years in prison, but I am not the person who spent longest period in prison. But more than me, there are others also. And so many people who were killed. And after that, we formed an alliance between different types of parties who believe in democracy, who are against autocratic regime. And the movement in 1990, it was successful. And we, at that time also, promulgated a new constitution, but that was not enough, and that was not drafted and promulgated by the Constituent Assembly, by the representatives of the people. So it was not exactly properly accepted by the people. People were willing to promulgate the Constitution by themselves, by their representatives. And we did that after some years. But during this period, we had some rebel groups, and there was violence, and there was different types of struggles. And finally, as I mentioned that in 2005, there was 12-point understanding between the rebels and the democratic forces. It was particularly against autocratic monarchy, autocracy. And then we got success, that people supported the alliance and supported that movement, popular movement. And in 2006, April, as I mentioned in my speech, that there was a new turning point. The dissolved parliament, which was dissolved by the, unconstitutionally dissolved by the king, was restored, and that clipped the power of the king. And after that, Constituent Assembly elections took place, and the first Constituent Assembly failed to promulgate the constitution, but it gave one very important contribution to Nepalese politics, that is, that ended the monarchy and declared republican, one thing. And but we had to again go to the next election for Constituent Assembly in 2013, and that promulgated the constitution within 20 months about after the elections. But there was another problem. In April 2015, when we were going to promulgate the constitution, draft the constitution, we were at the final stage of the drafting of the constitution. At that time, the earthquake was, devastating earthquake took place. 9,000 people lost their lives, 23,000 people were wounded, and 900,000 houses and monuments, etc. were destroyed. In such a situation, even then, in September 20, we promulgated the new constitution from the Constituent Assembly. And at the same time, we abolished monarchy. At the same time, we settled the problem of conflict there, and we managed the arms and combatants of the rebels and promulgated the constitution, and then new government was there, and I got opportunity to lead the government, and with a feeling of accommodation and addressing the demands of the people. Of course, there were some differences, and of course there were some differences and class, we can say not class but differences, and on the question of interest, and interest groups were of course active to insert their interest inside the constitution. That was very usual, but more than, even in such a situation, more than 92% of votes were in favor of constitution, and later on there was unanimously the constitution was accepted, and all the forces took part in the elections.
Bringing together the Nepali Communist Party must have been a challenge. You have Maoists, they're a revolutionary party, and that is, you obtain political power through the barrel of a gun. I've read the history of the communist movement, and back in the days of the Third International, we split between parliamentary parties and revolutionary parties. And then there's this democratic parliamentary tradition of communism also in Nepal. How did you manage to bring these two things together? Not easy.
In my opinion, the world is very dynamic, everything is being changed, and in the history, America raised weapons time and again for different regions. And in the course of democratic movements also in different parts of the world, democratic forces neither left nor either left or right, there was no difference. But for democracy, for their causes, there is weapons in history. So only the Maoist party isn't single party to raise the weapons. But Nepali Congress and other political parties also in Nepal raised weapons against Rana oligarchy and other autocratic systems different times. And the people, when the constitutional ways and peaceful means and ways are blocked, and the voices and interests of the people are suppressed by the force, then people tolerate for some time and they retaliate after some time. That was, I think, we resolved, we settled the problem of violence, and that is important. We don't want to go back to the history, but more than that, we want to bring change in the society. There was violence, people were being killed.
Yep.
And the situation is now changed, and that is important. Situation is changed and there is peace. Combatants are inside the, some of them are inside the army, they are included, accepted in army, and some of them were, they went back to their own jobs. Even they got some incentives, and weapons were handed over or destroyed. So now the political party completely gave up the policy of violence. Yes, of course, sometime, once upon a time, they were telling that political power comes out from the barrel of the gun. They were telling like that, but now they say that from the ballot it comes, and they are getting everything from the ballot.
That's a very good change in slogan.
Yeah.
From the barrel of a gun through the ballot box.
Yes.
Must be interesting though if you're a government of Nepal made up of the Nepali Communist Party. What's it like sitting down with the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government? Do your old Maoists have discussions with their old Maoists?
I don't think so. In my opinion, I think we have a, as I mentioned before too in my speech, that we have a long history of sacrifice and struggle. And now we have entered into a new era of economic development. we fought for political freedoms for a long time, once and again. But now, there is constitution, there is system, there is elected government, there are three tiers of governments, and the turnout of the votes in the elections was very excellent, more than 70%. At the first round, there was more than 80%, and even in the last round, there was more than 70% turnout of the votes. So people are enthusiastic in this political change, and we have completed transitional phase. And now our focus is to, as I said, that we have friendship with all, no enmity.
No,
We have just friendship, and we have very good relations with Chinese Communist Party, with Democratic Party of USA, Republican Party of USA, with President Trump, with Xi Jinping, with Mr. Modi. And
well,
others.
that covers three very interesting
and,
bases.
and we and we want to get support from all for our development.
Yeah.
We are working for, we have established government now, majority government, and now we cannot wait for a longer time. We have to eliminate poverty, we have to meet SDG goals within 2030, we have to meet our target of graduating our country from LDC within 2-3 years, and we have to bring fundamental change in our society economically. So we focus our efforts, our resources, our strength for good governance and for economic development. But it's not enough. It will be late if ourselves we do. So we need support and cooperation from our friends as well, from south, from north. It means from India, from China. We have very good relationship with both of. We don't care about the colors.
That's a good approach. Well, congratulations on the political achievement. Politics is hard, and you've suffered a lot personally. And bringing about a democratic constitution, given the complex history, is no small achievement. But as you've just said, you're going on to look at the future. You've got a new national economic development strategy. You have 30 million Nepalis across a vast country in terms of its mountainous terrain, challenges of transport infrastructure, of telecommunications, of education, of health services. Give me a sense of your development strategy over the next 4 or 5 years. And as you said, where are you now seeking international investment?
We cannot just focus our efforts in one direction, because we have to develop from each and every aspects and angles. Like 2/3 of majority of our population depends on agriculture, and agriculture is not advanced, not developed. So we have to modernize our agriculture, commercialize our agriculture, and mechanize. And by this process, we have to bring the people out from agriculture to the industry, maybe a small industry, agro-based industries and others. And in service sector, in tourism, in commerce sector, we have to bring the people out from agriculture, because that huge number of population is not necessary for the agriculture sector. And without modernizing, without mechanizing this sector, we cannot do this. So we have to give priority to the agricultural sector as well, and to bring change in the agricultural system. we have to increase production, agricultural products. We have to use new technology for the production, increasement of production. In this way, but we cannot just, as I said, that we cannot give priority just for one area. But at the same time, for infrastructure, for connectivity, for IT sector, and for establishing industries, and to bring balance our business, our trade, which is quite unbalanced in a balanced situation now. We have to bring in positive direction to this. For that, we have to increase production. We have to produce export items. We have to lessen our import items. In this way, we have to work in different areas. For that, we have to prepare our human resource, formal education, and as well as vocational trainings to the relevant people. Whatever job they do, their skills and trainings they must provide it. In this way, and another way, that we have to invite foreign investment as well, so that we are trying to create such an environment where foreign investment is attracted to come.
One of the projects which has attracted some controversy in your own country is the major hydroelectric dam. From memory, I think it's about 1,600 megawatts. It's a big dam. Was suspended for a while and then has been recommenced. I think there's a Chinese construction firm, from memory, Gezhouba. Once built, this, as I read it, this dam would double the installed capacity of your country. So where's that project up to? How important is it, and how controversial does it remain within your country?
Some months before, when Indian Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi was visiting Nepal, then me and him both inaugurated the Arun III project. That is 900 megawatts project that we lay down the stone, not inaugurated, lay down the stone. And that is in progress, and that will be the first big project and to be completed. And similarly, we are inviting investors from all over the world. And we are giving attention to reach in power purchase agreement with different countries. And during some 1.5 months before BIMSTEC summit, we signed agreement about cross-border transmission lines, where we can sell our electricity to other countries also, to India, to Bangladesh, and to other countries also. And in this way, countries now can invest in Nepal and hydropower sector because they can sell the electricity to other countries also. And ourselves, we need more electricity. There is even now shortage of electricity, and we are also, even now we are buying about 400 megawatts of electricity from India. And of course, you asked about the Budi Gandaki, that is one project. We decided to study The project was awarded to Chinese company Gajawa before, but I don't know why that was again terminated. And now again Gajawa applied to work, showed the interest. And we said that, okay, we'll study. And for study and to have talks with Gajoba company, we decided to give authority to the Ministry of Energy. And that is beneficial for the country. And there is no controversy. If other countries want, they can invest because we have enough capacity, enough potential of hydropower, and very attractive projects we have. They can invest. So for other countries also, other investors also, if they want, there are projects ready to. And if any companies any countries are interested, we welcome.
Good. Well, the message to everyone here in New York is Nepal's open for business, open for investment, and all of you here who have come in the door from Wall Street, you can take a card from the Prime Minister's delegation later. Now, we're open to questions, Q&A here, and so as people throw their hand up, if you could give me your name, where you come from, and a short question. If you start delivering a speech, I'll probably ask you to sit down. So, and we Australians are notoriously impolite about such things. And so, sir, you were first with your hand up. Yeah.
Mr. Prime Minister, welcome to New York. My name is Mark Munger. I had the privilege of serving as a Peace Corps teacher in Ilam Jila in Mechianchal during 1966 and 67, and have visited many times to see my students and friends. The path of development assistance in Nepal has perhaps been uneven. What can the people and government of Nepal expect of donors to improve development assistance? And what may donors expect of the people and government of Nepal to improve development assistance?
So your name again, sir, was?
Mark Munger.
Mark Munger, who has been previously a Peace Corps worker in Nepal.
Aitabari Bajar.
Aitabari Bajar is Ilam.
And
Ilam,
I
yes.
can't interpret that for anybody. So, Prime Minister.
Exactly, I couldn't catch his. My attention was that he was working in eastern Nepal.
Yeah,
My
he's a Peace Corps
attention was
worker, and his
concentrated,
question
yeah.
essentially was, how do we improve the circumstances in the country for development assistance projects into the future? Am I right, sir?
Yes, sir.
Good. There you go.
I would like to thank the US government, first of all, for MCC project.